I was halfway through rehearsing my promotion pitch, yes, in the damn mirror above the breakroom sink when the coffee machine let out another helpless sputter. Out of beans. Again! Fourth time this week. Fitting, honestly. 7 years of keeping this firm's biggest accounts intact, and I still couldn't get facilities to order more coffee. I'd built our entire client success program from scratch. Juggled million-dollar contracts while a parade of strategy consultants cycled through like they were on some corporate dating app. And still, there I was at 8:19 a.m., shaking the last espresso pod like a sad maraca. But that morning felt different, hopeful even. My blazer fit just right, my heels didn't click too loud, and the sky over Minneapolis clear blue, no drama. I had triple confirmed the executive meeting, the one where they'd finally announced the new VP of Client Relations. My promotion. The one I'd been promised with every "you're essential to this company" nod. The one I'd earned through sheer grit and flawless Q4 retention. And Griffin was supposed to be my intern. You know, the type fresh out of Columbia Business School, hair too perfect handshake like a wet envelope. I took him under my wing after the COO said he had potential. Translation. He looked good in a blazer and knew how to hashtag a LinkedIn post. He once ended a pitch deck with a meme of Steve Jobs. The board loved it. But me? I taught him how to read between a client's lines, how to navigate those messy procurement chains and avoid getting buried in red tape. I even cleaned up the follow-up emails he tried to send, the ones that read like they were written by a sleep-deprived robot. Griffin smiled like a politician and couldn't read a room to save his life. But I trained him. I polished him. And I watched as he parroted my strategies like they were his own, often just seconds after I whispered them under my breath. They say hard work pays off. What they don't say is who it pays. Usually, some guy with a firm handshake and a family connection on the board. And yes, he plays tennis with the CFO's nephew. By the way, 97% of the folks listening to these stories still aren't subscribed. I see you, lurking like Griffin in my Zoom calls. Go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It helps way more than you think. And maybe drop a like, too. The crew actually cheers when it happens. No joke. It's kind of adorable. It's embarrassing, but kind of sweet. Okay, back to the story. My Google Calendar looked like a nuclear reactor control panel. Every task, every call, every internal deadline color-coded with surgical precision. Legal reviews in orange, client onboarding in teal, revenue red flags in bold fire alarm red. Then there was that one block every other Wednesday at 6:45 p.m., tucked between meetings no one looked twice at, labeled in deep crimson LLC asset transfer review, private, no invitees. Because while they were busy letting Griffin stumble through client pitches and butcher one of my Gartner quotes on a webinar, I was preparing for something they'd never see coming. Not because I was secretive, though yes I was, but because they never really looked. You'd be surprised how invisible you can become after 16 years of showing up over-delivering and never missing a deadline. My name wasn't trending in Slack. I didn't make the all-hands shout-out list. But my name was on nearly every master services agreement for our top-tier clients. Legacy contracts. Clients I onboarded before Griffin even had a company badge. You don't forget where the revenue is buried when you're the one who poured the concrete over it. So that morning, I wasn't bitter. I was aware that Griffin still thought enthusiasm and buzzwords could replace instinct, but more importantly, I was already moving the pieces off the board. Just a quick sync, the VP had said when he booked it. And let me tell you, nothing good ever comes from a quick sync. You don't get stock options or champagne from a quick sync. You get pivots, you get strategic changes, you get blindsided. It was 10:03 a.m. when I stepped into the focus pod, a glass cube so thin-walled it had less privacy than a bus stop bench. The VP sat waiting, holding his latte like a prop, his face loaded with practiced sympathy. You know, the one eyebrows arched just enough to say, "This is hard for me too," lips flat like a corporate apology draft. He didn't waste time. "We've made a decision on the VP role," he said. "We're going with Griffin." I stared at him. Not shocked, just buffering. We just feel he brings a fresh, client-facing energy, he continued. A bit more forward, speaks the lingo, you know. Oh, I knew. Fresh energy meant young. Forward-facing meant photogenic. And lingo, that meant he once ended a pitch with a gif of Elon Musk winking. I didn't argue. I nodded once. Ears burning. But inside, I was already halfway out the door with their clients, and they didn't even know it yet. He kept going like he'd just unpaused his favorite podcast. We really feel like Griffin brings some fresh energy to the department. He's a bit more forward-facing, speaks the lingo. You know how it is? Oh, I knew exactly how it was. Fresh energy meant young, shiny, and easy on the eye during investor calls. Forward-facing meant he could hold a cocktail without visibly sweating. And speaks the lingo that meant he tweeted in bullet points and tagged the company like an unpaid brand ambassador. Meanwhile, I'd been the one whispering strategy in the background, untangling procurement nightmares and keeping high-maintenance enterprise clients just one email away from renewing million-dollar deals, since Griffin still thought churn rate had something to do with dairy. I didn't argue. I didn't flinch. I just nodded slowly. 1 beat, 2. My ears burned, like my own body wanted to reject the shame radiating out in quiet waves. I remember thinking, can anyone outside this glass box hear it? The sound of 16 years of sweat and skill being reduced to a smile in a Patagonia vest. And then, like a final insult to injury, Griffin knocked on the glass. His head popped in like a golden retriever at a dog park. Hey, just heard the news, he chirped. Wow. Wow. Couldn't have done it without you. He turned to the VP, laughing. She's been my Jedi master, right? Then he looked at me. Seriously, though, I'll need your help onboarding to the bigger stuff. Can we sit down tomorrow? You know, run me through all the legacy pipelines and whatever. Legacy pipelines. I wanted to tell him my legacy was the only reason he had a damn pipeline to bumble through in the first place. That I'd spent years clearing out his messes like some kind of corporate janitor with an MBA. He once submitted a JPG of a proposal instead of a PDF, and I spent 2 hours spinning it as a client engagement tactic. But I didn't say that. I smiled. Smooth practiced. Ice on a bruise. Of course, I said, happy to help. And in that moment, I wasn't humiliated. I wasn't even angry. I was activated. The next 2 weeks, I played corporate ballet. Smiled, nodded, applauded. I said things like, great question, Griffin, even when he asked if Q4 retention still mattered if Q1 growth looks spicy. He dropped buzzwords like breadcrumbs and hoped anyone would follow. I made him look sharp. But behind the scenes, I was already pulling the threads loose. Every time I helped Griffin, I was also helping me. Because while he played dress-up VP in freshly steamed suits, I was quietly backing up every file that mattered. Client histories, pricing evolution, renewal friction notes, margin-adjusted bundling strategies, stuff that wouldn't even register for him if I tattooed it on the side of his oat milk latte. I went back to the NDA buried in my onboarding packet from 2016 standard non-compete language. Looked solid. Airtight to anyone who'd never had to fight over intellectual property. But there, it was a loophole the size of Griffin's LinkedIn profile banner. It only applied to active employment. Nothing barred pre-separation groundwork. And nothing, not one sentence, covered clients whose contracts were signed by me. So I got to work. I opened the document archive and started scrubbing. Quietly, strategically. I updated the slide decks with sleeker branding, fewer initials, cleaner margins, removed contributor names, especially mine. Changed sharing permissions from editor to viewer on the original decks, then remove myself as owner. Let Griffin try duplicating the files. He'd be lucky to get a logo and a loading bar. Then came the outreach. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just little pings. Polite hellos to the procurement leads I once got out of legal trouble. Check-ins with COOs I knew had a soft spot for mid-century furniture and lower churn. Hey, just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly. If there's anything I can ever help with directly, here's my number. No pressure, no company name, no signature, just my first and last name. familiar, personal. Most replied the same day. One messaged, "I'm so glad you reached out. I wasn't sure if I could contact you directly." Another asked flat out, "Are you finally going solo?" I sent a smiley face and typed, "Not yet, but stay tuned." And then, the turning point. If you believe in quiet strength and the power of patience, subscribe now, because the next chapter of this story is just beginning and you won't want to miss how the game truly changes. Late one night in my apartment, with the glow of the fridge louder than my thoughts, I scrolled through the company's DocuSign logs. Yes, I still had access. They never revoked my admin credentials after the migration project. And there, it was my name. Over and over again. I was still the legal signatory on our 10 biggest deals. They'd never updated the contracts after my last internal promotion, which meant every one of those clients, their master service agreements were still bound to me. They gave Griffin my parking spot, my bonus, my title. But the contracts, they were mine. And I knew exactly what to do with them. My bonus, my seat at the table. But they forgot something critical. They forgot the foundation. And here's the thing about foundations. If you're the one who poured the concrete, you know exactly where to crack it. Watching Griffin manage my former portfolio was like watching someone try to eat a lobster with a plastic spoon. He had the polished suit, the over-bleached smile, the glowing LinkedIn endorsements from people who never worked a day with him. What he didn't have instinct. He waltzed into client meetings, late used the word synergy, like it was salt, and completely missed the subtle signs, like when a client's tone dropped half a decibel, or when their assistant started rescheduling meetings without an alternative. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from jumping in. But I didn't. I let him flail. Publicly, I was the picture of support. I offered gentle mid-call clarifications, sent polished follow-up notes that covered up his vague ramblings, made it look like his weird silences were deliberate pauses for reflection. Privately, I was laying pipe. I had started funneling select clients toward external solution partners, little boutique firms I'd created on paper, shell brands, clean neutral names, slick one-pagers, all of them under the umbrella of my newly formed LLC. To the clients, it looked like we were expanding our ecosystem. To the company, it looked like nothing. To me, it was freedom in motion. Griffin once told one of our longest-standing clients that our integration model was a little outdated, but still solid for compliance vibes. Compliance vibes. I spent the next 2 days smoothing it over. The client, politely irritated, asked if we had any backup vendors in case they needed more nimble data ops. I said, "Actually, we've been testing a new boutique firm that might fit the bill. I can connect you." She smiled. "That'd be great. We trust your judgment." That was checkmate number 1. Another client, big finance, high maintenance, zero tolerance for buzzwords, called to ask why Griffin kept referring to their infrastructure as scalable. I pivoted the conversation, then casually mentioned we'd started exploring more white glove vendor relationships. Want me to send their deck? Please do. So I did. And guess what? The deck was mine. The firm was mine. The IP was mine. That Friday, Griffin presented a proposal I had ghostwritten from title to thank you slide, mispronounced the product name twice, still got a standing ovation from the VP. The VP even winked at me like we were sharing some inside joke. "See?" he beamed, patting Griffin's back. "This is the kind of strategic thinking we've been missing." I smiled back. Not because I was proud of him, because I knew he'd just pitched my exit plan. "Feels fresh." That's what the VP said as he clapped Griffin on the back like a proud camp counselor. I smiled so hard my jaw cracked. That night, I opened a new business checking account under my LLC North Cedar Strategies. No frills, just clean lines and a name that sounded like it belonged on the footer of an RFP. Then I logged into Stripe and processed my first client retainer. 5 figures. Wired clean. Labeled as vendor onboarding, it looked so boring no one would ever question it. That was just the beginning. While Griffin was out posting LinkedIn selfies from rooftop mixers and tagging executives like a social media intern, I was building something real, something deliberate, something they wouldn't even recognize as gone until it was already mine. It started with breakfast. No conference room, no official calendar invite. Just a quiet meeting at a little French cafe in the North Loop that didn't accept corporate cards on purpose. The partner, let's call her Ava, was Legacy. An enterprise client so big we kept her logo on the homepage like it paid rent. I brought a plain folder. No branding, no logos. My signature already dry. Hers was the last piece. She took one bite of her almond croissant, flipped through the document, and said, "Honestly, Dana, I'm surprised you didn't do this sooner." Then she signed. Just like that, the account was mine. Not the firm's, not Griffin's. Mine. Technically, the deal went through a procurement scout. I'd introduced someone with a Gmail, a vague LinkedIn profile, and a perfectly curated resume designed to look like a consulting nomad. Clean. Untraceable. They didn't question it. They didn't even look. 2 days later, I got a ping from an older client. CFO type. Polite, but formal. We're pausing expansion discussions to reevaluate vendor alignment. That's MBA speak for we're leaving and we're being classy about it. I forwarded the message to Griffin. He replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. Later that day, I watched him pace in front of the office kitchen like a Roomba, with no walls left to bump. Phone in hand, jaw tight, hoping the signal bars would rescue him from reality. In the next strategy meeting, he spoke faster than usual, tripped over the QBR numbers, made a weird joke about seasonal deal hibernation. Silence. Then it happened. While I was in the middle of reformatting a deck, a Slack notification popped up on my screen. Griffin had deleted a message. What he didn't know, I still had audit-level access from a system migration project 2 years ago. They never revoked it, so I opened the log. Let's just say he was already starting to crack. Sloppy. The deleted message read, "Do I still need to CC her on these anymore?" It was buried in a thread with the VP about client proposals. About me. I screenshotted it. Timestamp and all. Saved it in a folder labeled Legacy Transition. Griffin thought I was done. Thought I was some background character in his rise story. A footnote. A mentor arc. A sidekick fading to black the second he put on the crown. But I wasn't gone. I was everywhere. He didn't look. In the NDAs, the master contracts, the fallback clauses in our top-tier agreements that still pointed to me as escalation contact. I was in the compliance notes in the admin systems in the side decks built before Griffin ever had login credentials. I wasn't a ghost. I was the infrastructure. And I just started removing the screws. He noticed the shift slowly, like a boat realizing it's been unanchored. Emails started going unanswered. Calendar invites stopped getting accepted. Client check-ins postponed indefinitely. Quarterly review demos suddenly needing to pause for internal reassessment. He didn't connect the dots. Because Griffin never saw the whole board. He only saw the spotlight. But me, I was the scaffolding. Then came the all hands. Subject line. Leadership, evolution, and exciting wins. It practically smelled like cologne and self-congratulation. Griffin beamed on Zoom like a guy who just guessed the price of a frozen lasagna and won a washer-dryer set. "I just want to thank everyone for believing in me," he said, those 2 white teeth gleaming. "Especially those who shaped me," he added, glancing at my little square on the screen like I was a decorative throw pillow. "The mentorship here has been incredible." The chat exploded. Fire emojis. Well-deserved in caps. One person actually typed king. I muted the call. Took a sip of my dark roast. Then I opened the draft subject transition update. My resignation email was flawless, HR beige. After 6 wonderful years, I've decided it's time to begin my next chapter. I'm deeply grateful for all I've learned here and proud of the work we've done together. My last day will be in 2 weeks. I'll do everything I can to ensure a smooth handoff. I clicked send. Then I sat back and watched the slow bleed begin. By Monday, Griffin inherited my accounts. By Tuesday, he realized none of them were replying. Email threads, dead. Meeting links, empty. Out-of-office replies with cheerful redirects. Please contact our alternate solutions. Partner at northseedaropsa protonmail.com. He cornered me near the copier. Hey, weird question. Have you heard from big client lately? I think I might have missed something. I smiled. Oh, no clue. Probably just a quiet week. I smiled like I didn't already know the client had wired their entire Q2 budget to my LLC's business checking last Thursday. Nope, I said casually. Probably just a busy quarter. Griffin nodded, visibly unsettled. Yeah. Just feels a little quiet. Oh, Griffin, you sweet summer intern in a tailored blazer. He had no idea I'd quietly set up Gmail filters months ago. Any message from a high-tier client that included my name, key project codes, or even phrases like renewal terms or QBR discussion was rerouted away from the shared inbox. Straight to nowhere, the rest buried behind layers of permissions. I still had admin access, of course. They never revoked it. They were too busy clapping for Griffin and polishing his LinkedIn glow-up to imagine that dependable Dana might be quietly re-engineering the company's foundation. He spent the next week chasing ghost clients that were no longer theirs, inboxes that returned no answers, meetings that mysteriously vanished minutes before start time. They gave him the title. I took the empire, and I never even raised my voice. The energy at the office shifted at first, like spoiled milk, subtle but sour. Slack channels slowed. The sales leaderboard froze. Someone canceled the monthly lunch and learn, and no one even pretended to care. Morale didn't dip. It evaporated. And the numbers, they stopped playing nice. 1 week after I left, Q2 projections were updated quietly. No all hands, no apology. Just a new bar graph in the Friday finance deck, shorter, sadder, labeled adjusted outlook in lowercase italics. Someone added market headwinds as a footnote, like wind was the reason their deals vanished into the fog. The VP looked older by the day. HR sent out a peppy email about embracing team resilience. Griffin stopped posting morning affirmations on LinkedIn and started wearing the same wrinkled shirt twice in a week. Meanwhile, I disappeared. No press release, no status update. My LinkedIn still said SAS Partnerships Director, like I'd been cryogenically frozen. No webinars, no podcasts, just silence. I didn't even reply to the former coworkers who slid into my DMs with, "Where'd you go? I left them on read." It was cleaner that way. But Griffin couldn't help himself. He started sniffing around like a dog that lost its squeaky toy. Word got back to me that he'd asked a junior rep nervously if I might have taken client contact lists. That same rep screenshotted the message and sent it to me with a laughing emoji lol, he's panicking. But I was never loud. Never sloppy. I didn't need to print out anything. I didn't forward a single file, because everything I built, I memorized. Every deal, every client, every dinner order and daughter's ballet recital. I wasn't just a contact. I was trusted memory, and that's not something you can revoke with a badge swipe. You can't trace muscle memory. Griffin tried. He dove into the CRM running audit logs like a detective hunting for a smoking gun. What he found instead were ghosts. Multiple high-value contacts suddenly marked inactive. No timestamps, no notes, just vanished. It shrugged it off as an import glitch. But Griffin knew better. The pipeline was rotting from the inside out. His name alone didn't carry enough weight to hold it together. He just didn't have proof. Meanwhile, I was free from their noise, from the hollow applause and buzzwords in endless retro meetings. Invisible. And for the first time in years, that invisibility felt like power. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the kind of day where the sun mocks you for believing in order. My phone rang. Blocked number. I almost didn't pick up. "Hey, it's Mel," whispered a shaky voice. Melanie, the junior ops analyst I'd always brought into strategy calls so she could be heard over testosterone and acronyms. "They're freaking out," she said barely above a whisper. Full-on panic mode. VP's locked in a room with Griffin. They're pulling logs. Legals are rereading your exit email like it's the Zapruder film. People think you sabotaged the pipeline. I let that hang. "Did you?" she asked, half laughing. I smiled. Really smiled for the first time in weeks. "No," I said. "I didn't sabotage anything. I just reorganized it." That night, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, No preview, just the name CEO. I didn't answer. Minutes later, a text came through. Why did you resign so suddenly? No pleasantries. No hope you're well. Just those 6 words. I sat with it. Let it marinate. I could have sent a polished paragraph. Vague nod to personal growth or new adventures. But not now. I typed 3 words, checked the pipeline. Then I turned off my phone and poured a glass of wine, one of the expensive bottles from Ava's client gift basket that had arrived at my condo. By the time morning meetings resumed at HQ, panic had metastasized. Someone had finally checked the pipeline. Every major Q2 deal gone. Marked reevaluated, paused indefinitely, or simply stripped from the CRM. One lead was tied to a new vendor account registered just 4 weeks ago. Another tagged as lost to a competitor, with a redirect email routing straight to my new operations, lead the same one they'd laid off 6 months earlier for budget cuts. Investor relations flagged the forecast drop. Finance sent an emergency report marked confidential. Urgent. Projections weren't just low. They were crumbling, hollowed out from the inside. Griffin didn't speak in meetings that day. The VP started calling things anomalies in a tone that sounded more like fear than strategy. And the CEO just stared at the numbers like they'd personally betrayed him. But numbers don't lie. They just follow whoever holds the pen. The internal memo wasn't supposed to leak, but companies like ours always bleed from the inside when the heat gets too high. An anonymous post appeared on a mid-tier industry forum, just vague enough to avoid legal trouble, just detailed enough to make jaws drop. 3 major clients shift allegiance to a newly formed boutique firm. Source claims executives never saw it coming. Within hours, screenshots exploded across Slack and LinkedIn. Someone matched the clients. Someone else traced the firm's sleek, modern, and suspiciously vague name to an LLC filed just 4 months prior in Delaware. A new website. Clean branding. Not a hint of tech bro nonsense. Then, someone found the team page. There I was. Not hiding. Not smirking. Just standing beside 2 people the company never thought to keep: a razor-sharp analyst they downsized last winter and a client success manager ghosted after maternity leave. My revenge wasn't loud. It was surgical. Griffin was first, not fired outright. Quietly moved back to a strategic support role. His name vanished from the org chart like a deleted comment. The VP took early retirement, the kind with an NDA and severance that tastes like gravel. By Q3, the company's valuation had dropped not a crash, but a slow, sickly leak. Clients stopped renewing. New prospects wouldn't bite. The word was out. Their golden goose had flown the coop with all the eggs. Meanwhile, I watched it all unfold from my ocean view condo. Tile floors so cold they felt like justice underfoot. The breeze came in salty and clean, erasing the scent of recycled boardroom air and fake laughter. I poured a cup of Ethiopian roast-rich black unbothered. My mug was matte black, heavy, embossed with a single logo. Mine, not some trendy tech bro startup font or buzzword salad. Just clean lines. A name they never noticed until it was printed across their loss reports. I stood at the window, watching sunlight hit the water like a spreadsheet finally balancing. No emails, no calls, no guilt. Some pipelines burst. Mine just flowed elsewhere. What struck me most was how calmly I played the long game. No drama, no shouting, just ruthless precision. A reminder that real power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just reroutes the future with a smile. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. If you followed my story this far, thank you. This isn't just about me getting what I deserved. It's about all of us who have ever been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones building the foundation, holding things together while the spotlight shines elsewhere. And sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's patient, strategic, and rooted in knowing your own value. I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible at work? Have you ever had to watch someone else take credit for your hard work? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience matters and your voice deserves to be heard. Let's build a community where we lift each other up, not tear each other down. Here's what I've learned. Don't rush. Don't burn bridges. Use your knowledge, your skills, and your resilience to quietly set your own path. Remember, success isn't always about immediate wins. It's about the long game. Hold your head high, plan carefully, and never let anyone tell you that your hard work isn't worth recognition. If this story inspired you, hit subscribe and join me. There are many more stories to tell, stories of strength, patience, and quiet power.